I'm filming some swift chicks. I got told there were some chicks nesting in these boxes at Felixstowe Library, which had been here for I think about 4 years. But this is the first year where swifts have actually bred and there's chicks in the boxes. So this is the setup. And the box that's being used is not these three, not this one, not that one, but the one in the middle on the left side. And that one just there. And this is our angle.
The swift is a medium-sized aerial bird, which is a superb flyer. Sleeping, eating, bathing, and even mating on the wing, while flying, swifts rarely touch the ground. They are also the fastest birds in level flight, with an impressive top speed of 69 miles per hour. Swifts are plain sooty brown with a white throat, but in flight against the sky, they appear black. They have curved wings and a forked tail. Swifts are summer visitors, breeding across the UK, but are most numerous in the south and east. Spending their winters in Africa, swifts migrate 3,400 miles twice a year, stopping off to refuel in places like Portugal and France along the way. Swifts spend just 3 months of the year in the UK, arriving in early May, staying for the summer, and then leaving in early August. They spend their winters south of the Sahara. British ringed swifts have been recovered in the Congo Basin, Malawi, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and also South Africa. We still aren't sure what routes these birds use to and from their wintering grounds. A young swift, ringed in Oxford, United Kingdom, on 31st July, was recorded in Madrid, Spain, on 3rd August, having covered 792 miles, which is 1,274 kilometers, in approximately 3 days. Historically, swifts nested in holes high up in large trees. They can still be seen doing so in old Scots pines in northern Scotland's Abernethy forest. Today, almost all swifts in England nest in colonies under the eaves of old buildings or in crevices in walls. Despite living life in the fast lane and weighing about the same as a Cadbury's cream egg, swifts are long-lived birds, which is reflected in the fact that they lay just a few eggs. There are usually 2 or 3 eggs in a clutch, and they only attempt to rear a single brood every year. The average lifespan of a swift is 9 years, reaching breeding maturity at around 4 years old. Estimates of the oldest recorded swift range from 18 to 21 years old. Swifts can seem practically ancient compared to our robins, which survive for just 13 months on average. isn't possible to distinguish male or female swifts from their plumage, and most likely it is the same for the birds themselves. So having an audible means of identifying sexes probably helps them avoid some dreadful errors during courtship and breeding. But the birds need pretty good hearing to pick out those millisecond differences when traveling at high speed and at altitude. We do know that whilst birds hear on the same frequency range as humans, their temporal acuity, time-scale perception, is far better than ours. So swifts get much more information out of these brief calls than we can. A group of swifts is called a scream, and for good reason. You'll often hear them before you see them. Swifts will pair over several years if both survive their annual migrations. They are monogamous. However, no one knows whether pairs remain in contact with each other outside the breeding season. So how do they find each other back on their breeding grounds in Europe? From the tweets, we now know how they can tell males from females. But how do you know it is your partner that is calling? The answer may lie in the terminal tweets in each call. There may be tiny variations in frequency as it falls off, or they may vary in number of individual tweets. The individual identity may also lie in the longer part of the call itself. If you're familiar with swift calls, you may have noticed that the scream part of the call is not a pure note. It has a sort of harsh or grating quality to it. And if looked at as a spectrogram, you would be able to see that they are quite fuzzy and wavy. This fuzziness is because the sound undergoes what is called amplitude modulation, AM for those who remember radio. Just think of the signal vibrating. But how would a vibrating call contain information on individual identity? The problem is that we know much more about sound production than sound detection in birds. Detection studies have been limited to behavioral experiments in the laboratory with captive species like zebrafinch, canary, or budgerigar. Dooling and Pryor, 2016, have shown that zebrafinches have a temporal perception at least 4 times more sensitive than humans. Swifts are incredibly aerial birds, living entirely on the wing for years at a time, rarely touching the ground for even a moment. They catch all their food in the air: aphids, flies, spiders, beetles, mayflies, even small moths and dragonflies, whirled into the sky and carried on the wind. Swifts drink and bathe, sleep, and even mate on the wing. It's thought that they're able to stay in the air for longer by switching off one half of their brain during unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, USWS, so one half can rest while the other stays active. Swifts also have some other inventive techniques for survival. They drink by gliding over water and taking sips, or by catching raindrops. They bathe in much the same way, flying slowly through falling rain or dusting themselves over water bodies, smacking the surface of the water with their bodies before bouncing back up and shaking off the droplets. Are you ready to see a swift yawn? Swifts spend most of their lives in Africa, but they journey thousands of miles to breed in vast numbers across the world, from the westernmost fringes of Europe eastward to China. Around the globe, there are estimated to be somewhere between 95 million and 165 million of them sailing across the skies, justifying their English name of common swift. You may wonder why these well-traveled birds come to the UK when so many of our summer days are rain-soaked, making it difficult, you might think, to catch the insects they need to feed their young. The answer must be that, apart from the occasional, particularly bad year, it works for them, and has done for millions of years. In fact, our northern summers have a great advantage for swifts and many other kinds of insectivorous birds: long daylight hours, which enable them to forage for 16 hours a day at the season's peak. Swifts have several unusual adaptations that enable them to cope with our bad weather. The eggs and chicks of most small birds are vulnerable to chilling, so extended forays by the parent birds to feed themselves during incubation and brooding can cause the nest to fail. Swift embryos, by contrast, are resistant to cooling, except at the start of incubation. Chicks can become torpid, a state of lowered metabolism, to conserve energy, enabling the parent birds to feed elsewhere until the weather improves. Once they are a few weeks old and have fat reserves, swift chicks can survive several days without nourishment, greatly enhancing their chances of fledging in variable weather conditions. Are you ready for another yawn? Swifts make their nests in crevices in walls, under roof eaves, or inside pan tiles, the S-shaped roof tiles seen on older houses. Gathering materials takes time. All the feathers, wisps of grass, tree seeds, and flower sepals must be found on the wing, blowing about in the air. Inevitably, scraps of plastic are now often found woven into the nest, a shallow dish that is glued together with the bird's saliva. Finding a nesting hole is the most crucial thing a swift has to do. Most individuals do not breed until their 4th year, but the young birds still make the migration journey and start looking for a safe, dark hole. Once they have found one, the young birds pair up and start to bring in feathers and other nest materials. The clear-to-see joy of life of young swifts is breathtaking. You hear them before you see them, screeching over the rooftops in gangs of 7 or 8, racing circuits around buildings. This anxiety about whether or not our swifts will return each May is something most swift watchers can relate to, but concerns have been escalating, with a massive and alarming 57% decline in numbers in the UK recorded between 1995 and 2017. For thousands of years, swifts have lived alongside us because the homes and other buildings we constructed for ourselves have also suited them. Today, though, we are making it much harder for these birds to survive. Reduced abundance of insects is highly likely to be a factor. Many other species of insectivorous birds are also in decline, but swifts are also up against a catastrophic loss of nesting cavities. Renovation of old buildings almost always results in access to their holes being blocked, while new housing tends to be sealed completely against nature. Modern building materials such as plastic soffits, part of the eaves, offer little potential for future weathering and gaps opening up. We need to accommodate nesting swifts, and urgently. Putting up swift boxes on the sides of your home is one way to help this incredible bird. Another yawn? While the peregrine falcon is the fastest bird when it dives into a stoop, the swift is the fastest of all birds in level flight, clocking in at 69.3 miles per hour. Another yawn? Because swifts are totally dependent on airborne prey, they are very susceptible to bad weather during the breeding season. Young swifts can survive without food for up to 48 hours, lapsing into a semi-torpid state. A lack of food for longer than that often sadly results in the chicks starving to death. It's not all bad news. More of the general public are becoming aware of the plight of swifts and are trying to help. They're putting up more nest boxes on the sides of their homes and allowing their gardens to grow wilder, becoming a paradise for insects. Another yawn? And here comes Mum.
We weren't 100% sure initially if there was 2 chicks in there, but I can confirm I've seen 2 chicks come to the opening of the nest box with their heads near the opening. Also managed to capture one of the adults swooping into the box. I've been here for nearly about 3 hours today. Literally just sat here on my little stool, and yeah, just literally fixated on that box just there. So yeah, back's killing, but absolutely love it. So yeah, and I can't wait to share this footage with you guys and Felixstowe Library as well. So yeah, it's been really fun. Long, but fun. Oh, I even had a nice little visit from a seagull. Poked his head up, literally just here, just poked his head up, looked at me, and then scarpered. Had a wasp fly into my head, a bumblebee circle my head, and then the odd visit from pairs of pigeons. Oh, and a blackbird. But yeah, apart from that, main focus has been the swifts, and we've got some really great footage. Oh, and as well as sharing it with Felixstowe Library, I'll also share the footage on YouTube, Instagram, maybe some stuff on TikTok as well, Facebook, and I'll also be sharing it with the Suffolk Birding Group as well. But yeah, so really good to have these guys breeding in nest boxes again. Well, I say again, first time in 4 years, which is brilliant, and hopefully next year they'll do the same thing again, and I'll be back. So there you have it, guys. Some beautiful swift chicks filmed on the side of Felixstowe Library. I think I spent in total around 6 to 7 hours maybe watching them. So I really hope you enjoyed all the footage. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.